Dylan here for Boom Boom Pop. I'm here with Andrew from Jack's Mannequin. How's it going today?
It's going well, man. Glad to be here.
Enjoying your time in Toronto and Canada so far?
Yeah. We had a rare day off yesterday, so got to kind of cruise around in Toronto a little bit. Had a little dinner out, and yeah, no, love being out here.
Nice. Any spots that you kind of discovered on your trip here?
Last night we ate we had a place called Itzakaya, God, Kuso or some, I'm forgetting the name, but it was sort of down where we were around like Church Street.
Okay.
An amazing Japanese sushi restaurant, really like a very good vibe. So that was kind of the highlight of yesterday, and went and did some yoga down there on Church Street, or I guess it was probably Queen Street, maybe I want to say. So yeah, got a little taste of the city, and yeah, had a great day off.
Awesome. So you're here because of the tour. You're promoting your new album, People and Things. You describe the record as a relationship record, and there's many different. It's a very optimistic record, I would say, but there's many different kind of levels of optimism to it as well. I was just wondering what relationships or soul relationship influenced the album.
Well, I mean, certainly, I think there were a lot of. This record was a product of a lot of reflection. I mean, there were certainly issues that I think I avoided or didn't discuss when I was making The Glass Passenger. I kind of joked that I was married in the period of time that I was writing that record, and didn't really talk about that as much because I think I was focused largely on just the elements of my recovery from being sick and all of that. So I think this record in a way was, sort of a way to clear the deck on some of that. I think there were relationships in my life I didn't pay as much attention to as I should have while I was in the process of my recovery, and as I started feeling better and getting distance from that, I found that those things were sort of very central to my focus, and I felt pretty dedicated to kind of resolving some of that. So certainly my marriage, but there were friendships that I wanted to talk about. There's songs like Hostage that make reference to that, past relationships that were sort of left unresolved, and certainly like on a song like Casting Lines, which is very much about family and sort of the web of blood that you can't really untie yourself from. So there was definitely a lot of different relationships that I feel like were addressed in the record.
And when you started Jack's Mannequin, there was a lot of themes about. You talked about like abandoning people you felt like when you were on tour with something corporate, and then coming back home, and sort of that alienation. Do you find that's a constant theme to the band?
I don't know if it's a constant theme. I feel like nowadays, and certainly in the past couple years, a lot of my life has been focused on addressing that and sort of remedying that, and trying to be in a place where the fact that I do what I do doesn't lead to this constant cycle of return and alienation, but instead return and celebration of the fact that I do have not only such a great family out here on the road, but such a great family and support system back home. Certainly on this album, like a song like Platform Fire, is about that. Is about this idea that we travel like we do, and that there's this sort of tightrope walk of getting up from night to night and trying to maintain that energy and be the best that I can be when I'm on a stage in front of people, but also that there is this whole world that makes that possible, that makes it possible for me to feel healthy and well and stable even when I kind of live a fairly transient lifestyle.
With the album as well, I find that there's a lot of very infectious choruses with the songs, and it kind of harkens back to me for Everything in Transit. Was that something conscious that you were thinking about during recording?
Well, I think certainly as I get more into a place of living more consciously, and Transit was a time that I think of as like very much an in the moment sort of living that I was doing. There was a lot about the living I was doing that was pretty questionable at the time too, but it was very much about the moment. I almost to a point where I was denying my past and avoiding my future and just kind of like raging in the second. And I found on this record sort of returning a little bit more to that headspace. Whether I was already there, I can't say 100%, but I was a combination of reflective but present. And and I think that I write my best music when I'm in that space, and it's easier to kind of lock into melodies and into sort of fresh, original ideas and choruses and thought processes. So, I mean, certainly I wanted to bring back some of the fun that was felt on Transit. But I also like to say that there is this balance between Transit and Passenger in this record. You know, there is a heaviness, I think, to some of the lyric, and there is still that sort of introspection that came with, you know, the time following my illness. But I certainly wanted to paint it with a little bit of a more upbeat brush.
And there's a mention of the Glass Passenger and Hey 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 as well, so it's kind of like that throwback to it a little bit too, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, and truthfully, that song was written, the first two verses and the chorus of that song were written during the time of Glass Passenger. That's actually the name. That song was written and was the namesake of Passenger. It wasn't until I was touring Glass Passenger and returned to the TLA in Philadelphia, which was one of the venues that I had referenced, that I was visiting on my sort of pre-diagnosis trip on that first Jack's Mannequin tour, and it was outside of that venue in the bus with my journal that I had just returned to the TLA, and all of a sudden I was like, you know what, I think I can finish this song now. And that's kind of why it ended up on this record. Was I think it took a few years to figure out how to celebrate the experience of what had happened to me, and sort of you know, and sort of find the distance from it that left me not feeling maybe resentful towards it or frustrated that it had happened, but instead embracing that it had happened, and sort of saying, you know, this is where I'm at, and life is good, and we might all encounter something difficult like this in our lives, but we can get past it.
Sure. And with everything in Transit, it's going to be the 7th birthday coming up in August, which makes me feel old because it feels like just like 2 years ago that the album was released. A lot of your fans were in the teenage demographic when the album was released. Right. Now they're quite a bit older. What's it like seeing your audience grow and having your audience can mature alongside you?
I mean, I think for me it's sort of one of the most it's one of the most incredible sort of factors of my day and of my career, that in my life I've been able to sort of watch not only myself grow through this music and sort of have charted the course of my of my upbringing and my coming into adulthood and beyond through these records that I've made, not just through Jack's but through something corporate, and yeah, to see people in the audience that I've seen since they were 14 or 15 years old, and now they're in their early to mid 20s, and then to see them alongside people who are just finding out the music for the first time, and have this sort of this generational thing starting to happen within the crowd is it's nothing I ever would have expected or planned for, but for me is definitely one of the highlights of what I get to do.
And I want to congratulate you too on the Dear Jack Foundation raising almost $500,000 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. That's awesome. As someone who's dealt personally with leukemia and been very vocal and transparent about it, how do you hope to further the foundation for 2012?
Well, our big focus now is this sort of lost generation of cancer patients. They refer to them as the AYA population. It's the young adult population, basically. That ranges in ages from 15 to 39. This group of people has not seen improvement in their survival rates in over 30 years now, which is a travesty. There's a lot of reasons for it. They're difficult to study. There aren't as many cases. There's a whole lot going on that makes it harder to get good research done for them and get focused there. But I feel like even since we've started having the conversation, other people are starting to have this conversation, and I've started touring hospitals that are beginning to build young adult wings so that, you know, if you're 20 years old, where you'll often be treated as either a pediatric patient and have to be in a ward with young kids and see 3-year-old, 4-year-old babies being treated, or in a more of an adult or geriatric ward where you're seeing people passing regularly. They're starting to build these wings of hospitals where young adults can be treated, and from what I understand, they're starting to see better health outcomes as a result. So our focus, while we're still a small foundation and don't have a ton of money to dedicate to research because it takes millions to get good research done. We're focusing on trying to locate some of these spaces and enrich them, whether that means, trying to put iPods in these rooms so kids have music to listen to, or helping subsidize families whose parents aren't wealthy enough to take time off of work and be at their kids' bedside, sending kids to camp so that they can have a normal experience even inside of their treatment. These are kind of the things the foundation is focusing on, and hopefully this year, being that we've finally gotten our nonprofit status officially, we'll be able to grow and expand and through conversations like this, spread our message and hopefully have people come find us and give us a whole bunch of money so that we can continue the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. The album is People and Things. Make sure you pick it up.